Welcome in, you guys. How are you? How are you? Today I'm just going to be going through some Reddit articles and pulling up some stories that we have. And if you guys feel the need to call in and maybe you want some support, I can stop and
Welcome in, you
we can
guys.
discuss that. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We can discuss whatever it is you want to talk about. I'm here for support, open dialogue. I've been 6 years free of gambling, and so I feel like I owe it to my fellow gamblers who are struggling and need help and support. I want to do whatever I can to inspire you and motivate you. I usually get on here, I make videos, I go live, and I try to speak life into you. I try to uplift you, but I want to try something different. I was on the road a few days ago, and I actually spoke to somebody, and you know, we were able to we were able to break through some things and address some things and find out exactly where he was in his, recovery journey, because the reality is everybody is at a different level. And one of the things that is paramount with gambling addiction, there is a sense of denial. Nobody wants to accept the fact that this addiction has taken over their life, and there's certain indicators that let you know whether or not you really truly have a problem. And the hardest part is admitting that you have a problem. It's the hardest thing. Even myself, when I look back when I was gambling, I never saw myself as having a problem. I never saw myself as having an issue. um, Even to this day, is very difficult for me to admit that it was a problem. It was a serious issue. I overcame it, but it's disturbing for me to say I had a real serious problem. Even to this day, I don't gamble, I don't do any of that, but it's still very difficult to wrap my brain around it. And so there is a sense of denial, guys. And so there's different things that you can kind of like, there's signs, there's a series of indications that you truly have a gambling addiction. And just straight off of the dome, the first one that comes to mind is that you are thinking about gambling when you're not gambling. It's on your mind, heavy. Welcome, Jonathan. Jonathan says, my problem is I always run out of money. One day I will hit. Hmm. Well, the fact that you always run out of money, like that's definitely an indication. Because if you have no money, I mean, you can't take care of anything, Jonathan. I don't know how serious you are in that statement, but if you're always running out of money, like, I mean, that's you need to stop. You know, it's like without money, you can't do anything. So, um, if you believe you're gonna hit, I can't stop you from thinking that. But if it's affecting your ability to pay bills, to sustain yourself, you know, I mean, that you need to stop. That's a sure indication that you need to stop. And you need to have somebody to control your finances, because you are no longer in the position to be responsible enough to do that. So I don't know if you were joking around or what, but if you're running out of money, that's definitely a serious indication that it's time to stop. I mean, that's any addiction, to be honest. Any addiction, whether it's shopping, alcohol, drugs, whatever the case may be. It's time to stop. You can't, you're no longer in a position to take care of yourself and make wise decisions. So I thank you, Jonathan, for expressing that, but you believe you're going to hit, and see, you're not ready. If you truly believe that you're going to hit one day, you're not ready to stop. And there's nothing that I can do for you except help you to see that It's a problem and it's affecting your life. So I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate your comment. But I'm going to move along here, and we're going to discuss some Reddit articles, guys. Got a lot of stories on here. It's been a while since I looked on here. Somebody says here, how do you get over wasted money? That's a question. All right, so I'll get right into this one. This looks like it's pretty interesting. It says here, this was written 10 hours ago, by the way. It says here, how do you get over wasted money? He wants to stop obsessing over what he's lost. He's not in the boat of chasing losses anymore, but he needs to stop thinking about what he could have done with the $8,000 that he threw away. That's what me and the guy were talking about the other day. That's interesting. That was the same amount. The guy had won. He said he was playing on a gas station slot machine, and he won 5,000, and then he won 3,000, and he turned around and lost it. The same amount of money. What are the odds? And he kept thinking about it. See, when you're thinking about money that wasn't even yours, that's the chase. That's the beginning of the addiction. You're thinking about money that was not even yours in the first place. You won it, you lost it. It wasn't yours, but you won it. And then you threw it away and you lost it. Yeah, some people will argue, well, it's mine. If I won, well, it's gone now. And the fact that you are worried about it and concerned about it, you're on the road to a terrible existence of chasing money that was not even yours in the first place. And that's a bad thing right there, because now you're going to actually take your money, your hard-earned money, and now you're going to go chase that money that was never yours. You just won it out of sheer luck. And that's how the cycle gets started, and that's how it keeps going on and on and on and on and on, guys. That's the cycle. That right there, that is the hook. The hook is when you win a large amount of money. That is the hook. Because once you win that large lump sum, now you think, oh, this is easy. I can do this again. And then you try to do it again. And then you lose. You win the $8,000. Now you're like, oh, I can double this. I can win 8 more thousand. I can have 16,000. See, when your brain start to do that, that's when you're getting in trouble. Because the reality is, somebody has to lose. In gambling, somebody has to lose. Who's gonna lose? It could be you or the house. But guess what? The house has more money than you. 9 times out of 10, the house has more than the gambler. Because guess what? If you had more money than the house, I don't think you would even be gambling. I mean, maybe some people would. I don't know. But I guess it would be the whole dopamine addiction at that point, seriously, at work. You know, it's a sad thing, but let me finish reading the story here. It says, he threw away 10,000 last year. He's not in debt, but he's trying to stop before it happens. He feels like he just keeps setting himself back financially. He's self-excluded, closed all of his accounts, but he can't stop thinking about how he should have started sooner. The regret from his last time is killing him. It wasn't even his biggest loss, but he think of how stupid it was in the first place. 8K compared to 10K or 30K or whatever the horrible number he threw away in the past seems minuscule. But he couldn't quit sooner and doesn't know how to get over it. So he's just holding on to these lingering thoughts. And that's really what happens. That is the psychosis of gambling addiction. You're constantly thinking about these past losses, you know, it's really a sad thing when you think about it. You're chasing past losses, you're risking money, and you're digging a deeper and deeper ditch for yourself. And that's just the reality of it. Some people can recover, and some people get lucky. Some people really do get lucky. I'm not going to sit up here and say people don't get lucky, but without enough money, your luck is going to run out. If you're not a millionaire, there's a great possibility that your money is going to run out. If you don't have a constant flow of hundreds of thousands of dollars coming into your hands, it's going to end very badly. And, you know, that's why I get on here and I read these Reddit stories so that you can hear these horrible stories, so that you can think about your situation and imagine yourself being in the position of these people that are throwing their lives away. See, we can learn from others' mistakes. You can learn from someone else's mistakes. When you hear these stories and you think and you say, man, I can relate to what this person is doing. I did the same thing that they did. I'm doing the same thing that they're doing. I don't want to end up like them. And that's why I get on here and I read these stories so that it can scare you straight. That's what it's about. That's the whole premise of it. Because the more you hear people's horrific stories of how they hit rock bottom and lost everything and wanted to take their life and end it all and all these things, it'll make you think about what you're doing. People, they can't even afford Christmas for their children. There's a story on my page. There's a lady who gambled so much she couldn't even afford Thanksgiving dinner for her children. She was online begging for $300 so she can have money to buy Thanksgiving dinner for her children. She even had her Cash App on there and everything, guys. It's really, really sad. So, I'm going to go through here and read some more of these stories. See if we can find another story here. Okay. 1 second. So, I got a story here. It says, he finally realized the jackpot was never money. He still has $318 sitting in his online casino account. And for the first time in a long time, he feels nothing. No itch, no chase, no fantasy of comeback, no lie. That's it, just one more. Because he finally sees gambling for what it is, a game with a catch-22. Flashy, exciting, and engineered to break you slowly. That's exactly how it is designed. It is designed to break you down slowly, to keep you winning just enough to come back and to just slowly take you down. Every time you come, you're spending a little bit more of your money. You might win some, but then you're losing a little bit of your money because let's say you go in and you win 500 and you lose that 500. Now you're taking out money. You're taking out 200 from the ATM. You might lose 100. You might get back 75. Okay, so you lose 25 that day. You're going to still come back. You're still going to come back because you're thinking about that 500 that you won. All right, so let's see here. He says, it looks like a game, but it plays with your life. And the house doesn't just win, it watches you lose everything you love. But the moment he saw through the illusion, that was the real win. I agree. He doesn't need to gamble to feel alive. He doesn't need to risk to feel progress. He doesn't need dopamine laced with debt and regret. The truth, walking away is the biggest jackpot he'll ever hit because now he's building a life that he doesn't need to escape from. That's a lot. The jackpot isn't the money. It's the moment you walk away and mean it. It's the peace that doesn't expire. It's the power that doesn't lie. And you know what? This is so true, guys. I have so much peace in my life. Even when things are going wrong in my life, when relationships are upside down, the fact that I no longer have gambling, the gambling monkey on my back, I'm able to deal with the ebbs and flows and problems in my life effortlessly. I may have some challenges in my life, but it's not as bad as when I was gambling. When you are gambling, the problems in your life feel like impossible mountains because you have this gambling monkey on your back, plus you have life to deal with. Life is already a challenge for all of us. Everybody's got something they're dealing with in life, whether it's a relationship, a marriage, you know, whatever, a midlife crisis, whatever's going on. You know, we all have our issues and our problems, but when you add gambling to the mix, it just creates a nasty, toxic cocktail of negativity. It really does. It makes everything that much worse. Imagine life already being hard and you throw gambling in the mix. It's impossible. It really is impossible. I'm gonna turn this off on me, guys, because there's no need for you guys to stare at me. And I feel like the more that I'm on this camera, the less likely that people are willing to stick around. So I'm gonna take the focus and attention off of me, and I'm just gonna talk about the situation at hand. That those of you who are dealing with this, you know, we're gonna walk it through. So let me find another article to discuss. Let's see here. Somebody says they effing hate casinos. Somebody says they're not having fun when they're at the casino anymore. They always feel anxious on their way to lose all their money. I know the feeling. But the more that they lose, the more it starts to feel like work. And they know that they're losing at every machine they go to, but yet they hold out hope. Sometimes they do win, but they give it right back. They're calling themselves a piece of crap. And they feel worse. They feel like the worst loser on the earth. This has to end. They have to stop. He keeps asking himself for someone to help, and they just don't want to. They're tired of him as much as he's tired of himself, and he can't blame them. The bad part is he'll keep convincing himself that he can manage without help until he's back again and his mind is screwed. Wow. And I hate to say this, guys. This is the harsh truth. Nobody cares about your gambling addiction. They don't. They could care less. Most people, I mean, you might get one friend that might support you and want to help you. But there's going to come a point in time where nobody cares. And the only support you're going to have is going to a therapist, going to a counselor, calling the helpline, you know, being on a YouTube channel like this. You know, you might have your buddies that are suffering with you that have the same problem. But even then, I found myself, the friends that I had that were gamblers, they were no help to me because guess what? When I was trying to quit, they were still gambling. I remember back in 2022, which was like probably 3 years after I had, let me see, I stopped in 2019. So I would say roughly 1 year in, or maybe 9 months in, I had stopped gambling. And, I was talking to one of my friends and they were talking about going to the casino. And I told them, I was like, hey, I stopped gambling. And they just kept going on about their different situation and how they were winning and losing. And just like I hadn't even said that I had stopped, like it didn't even matter. Like they didn't believe me. It was crazy. I really had stopped gambling. I was done. And this had to be, I'm trying to think, was this 2020? It might have been 2020 or 2021. I can't remember, but it had been almost a year since I quit. And like I said, you're not going to get much support from family because it's like a lot of people don't even see gambling addiction as a real illness. Most people don't see it. They're like, why do you just stop gambling? Just stop spending your money. And it's not that easy because it's a chemical imbalance. I can't say it's a chemical. Well, actually, it is a chemical imbalance because you got this rush of dopamine flooding your brain, and you're addicted to that dopamine flooding your brain, and that's why you gamble. When you gamble, you get that flooding of dopamine, and you keep doing it because it feels so good, because it's so euphoric. That's the hardest part. Is out of your control. I keep trying to tell people that when you start, the more you gamble, you get hooked on that feeling. You get hooked on that dopamine hit. It's the same thing that happens when people smoke marijuana. It's the same thing that happens when people smoke any other type of drug. The only thing is you're not smoking anything. You're pressing a button, or you're handling cards. That's the only difference. It's the same thing, if not worse. I've had people say that gambling was worse than having an alcohol addiction. I've heard them say it was worse than having a drug addiction. I wouldn't know because I've never been addicted to that, so I don't know. Alcohol, I found myself having a drink. At one point, I was having a drink every day to unwind, and I was like, man, am I becoming an alcoholic? Maybe borderline, but I can't say that I can't say that. I may have overdrank a few times, but I never had any addiction outside of gambling. Now, have I had a love addiction? Yeah. But I think that's a healthy addiction. When you're in love, all that, that's not, I mean, that could be bad. But yeah, the only two addictions I've ever had was being addicted to an actual person that I was in love with, and just gambling. That's it. I'll take being in love anytime aside from gambling. I can process that. I can get through that. But gambling, oh my goodness, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to conquer in my life. I still can't believe it, guys. 6 years later, almost 6 years later, I still have a hard time processing that I have not gambled. It's very difficult for me to process, but I'm very thankful that I stuck to my guns, and that I prayed so much, and I worked so hard. I focused on working, and I focused on bettering myself. It was a process. It wasn't just one thing. It was a myriad of things. Prayer was number one, though. Without an active spiritual life, it's going to be very difficult to break any habit. You have to pull forth some supernatural forces in order to break any type of addiction. I'll be the first to tell you that. So, tapping into the divine, tapping into God, the Almighty, is what saved me and put me on the right track, if you want me to be honest. That's the only thing that I think can save anybody. But if anybody can tell me something different, I'll listen. but I won't agree 9 times out of 10. But if that works for you, great. But I think when you tap into the supernatural, you tap into the divine, it's like something clicks in your head because you're tapping into something greater than you. See, if you constantly relying on yourself to help yourself out of this situation, I mean, this can be beyond just gambling. When you tap into supernatural power, it's like it's bigger than you, and you know it's way more powerful than you, and you have the faith in it, and so now you're like, I got this, and I know I'm gonna get through this. And that's what keeps you going and moving forward. And when you ask God Almighty or whatever you believe in to lead and guide you through the process, you are going to win. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. But guess what? You can call on that divine power to help you to manage and to guide you through the challenging times. Even when a person goes to a therapist and they're dealing with any type of illness, or sickness, it could be sickness in the body, they tell you to call on your higher power, your spiritual beliefs, because that supersedes anything that a doctor can help you with. You need that to anchor you. My faith in God anchored me and let me know I can get through this, and I will. It made me believe and know that I was going to get through it. And I just kept taking the steps every day, you know? So that's the truth. I've said that many times on this channel. Your faith is going to get you through this. If you're truly suffering from any addiction, your faith alone is going to get you through it. Your faith, aligning yourself with God Almighty or your higher power, whatever you believe in, is going to assemble the things, the people, the situations, the circumstances that you need to get you to victory. You're listening to someone who has been clean from gambling for 6 years. 6 years. I'm telling you, this is my story. I wrote a letter to God and I said, I no longer want this to be a part of my life. I want to be healed from this. Whatever it is inside of me that is causing, whatever it is I'm running from, whatever emotions I'm running from, whatever sadness, pain I'm running from, help me to heal it so I can let this go. And, you know, I've been clean from this gambling, free from this gambling for 6 years. But in the process, I noticed that the things that could pull me back into it have been resolved. And I'm talking about things from childhood. A lot of people are dealing with trauma and situations from childhood that have never been healed. People are dealing with things from relationships that have never been healed, and they're running away from it. They're either running to the bottle, or they're running to some type of drug, or they're running to gambling to escape. Because they want to get their mind off of what it is that's bringing them down. And so when you gambling takes your mind off of your sadness, your pain, your trauma, and whatever it is that you're going through. It's a great escape. I have to give it to them. The casino and all forms of gambling is an amazing escape, but it's a dangerous one. It's a dangerous one. If you're not a millionaire or a billionaire, gambling can be very dangerous. And so once you realize you have a problem and it's out of control, you have to stop yourself. You have to be stopped, because otherwise it's going to lead you into a pit of demise and you may never recover. Most people will not recover. Most people will not be able to quit. That's the reality. That's the statistics. Most people cannot quit because it's that difficult, it's that enticing, it's that addictive. This is a hijacking of your brain processes. It's no joke. I see people in the comments all the time. They talk so much trash in the comments, guys. And a lot of them are in denial that they have a problem. And they're angry because they see me pointing out this information and they don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear that they have a problem. And I understand. I understand and I empathize. I know that feeling. I definitely know that feeling. You know, you feel like nobody wants to feel like they don't have control of their life. You know, I definitely understand. But at some point, you have to look at your life and realize, am I happy with where my life is at? And then you realize, what is causing me to not be happy? And if it points back to you not having enough money and you're a gambler, it's a very clear indication that you might need to ease up off of it. Yep. So it's not easy. And that's why I made this channel, because I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. It's one of my greatest accomplishments, but it is indeed one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. So all you have to do is take the first step. And what is the first step, you might ask? The first step is admitting that you have a problem. That's the first step. Then that's the hardest step. Trust me. Admitting that you have a problem. Oh, man. 1 second, guys.